Imagine walking home late at night on a dimly lit street. The air feels heavy, silence pressing down on you, when suddenly a woman in a beige trench coat steps out of the shadows, her face partly hidden behind a surgical mask. She leans in closer and whispers, "Am I beautiful?" You nod nervously, and that's when she removes the mask, revealing a mouth slit open from ear to ear. This wasn't just some creepy ghost story told at sleepovers. In the late 1970s, Japan spiraled into hysteria. Children refused to walk home from school. Parents escorted kids in groups. Police increased patrols, not for criminals, but for a woman who might not even be real. Her name, Kuchisake-Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. Was she a vengeful spirit from Japanese folklore, or a real-life killer exploiting superstition to spread fear? Tonight, we're diving deep into one of Japan's most disturbing urban legends, the story of a faceless woman who made an entire nation look over its shoulder. In the late 1970s, Japan wasn't the land of neon lights and anime conventions you picture today. Back then, Japan was still rebuilding its identity, caught between strict traditions and a modernizing world. And into this fragile environment came a story so chilling it spread like wildfire. Children whispered it behind cupped hands. Parents dismissed it until fear grew too loud to ignore. The story was simple. A woman with a slit mouth wandering the streets asking, "Am I beautiful?" Say the wrong thing and you'd never make it home alive. Here's where things get controversial. Some claim the story wasn't just a myth. Reports surfaced of actual sightings. Terrified children swore they'd seen her stalking school gates. Teachers were warned not to let students walk home alone. In some towns, police escorted kids in groups like it was wartime. Think about that. An entire police force mobilized, not for a terrorist, not for a serial killer, but for a ghost. Do you buy that? Or was this mass hysteria, fear becoming stronger than truth itself? And yet, if it was only hysteria, why were there injuries, disappearances, even bodies connected to the sightings? Somebody, or something, was out there. What makes this story more disturbing is how specific it was. Witnesses didn't just say a scary woman. They described the same thing. Long, straight black hair, a beige or dark coat, a surgical mask, and eyes glowing with malice. But here's the detail that should make you uneasy. In the late 1970s, masks weren't common. If someone wore one back then, it was suspicious. Could this mean the legend had roots in reality? Could it have been a real killer, using the myth as a cover, blending superstition with violence? Some researchers believe exactly that the Kuchisake-Onna
wasn't a ghost at all, but a disfigured woman who snapped and turned her pain into revenge.
Now, here's the part that sparks endless debate: the government's silence. Newspapers covered the hysteria, but rarely addressed whether sightings were real. Police reports, vague, brushed aside, almost as if higher authorities didn't want the public to know too much. And isn't that suspicious? Think about America, Roswell, cover-ups, strange killings brushed under the rug. Fear has always been a tool. So ask yourself, was Japan truly haunted by a vengeful ghost? Or did authorities let the legend spread so people would fear shadows instead of questioning reality? But here's the kicker. The legend didn't die in the 70s. Even now, there are reports of a slit-mouthed woman near schools, playgrounds, rural roads. Endless arguments. Was she a ghost, a misunderstood criminal, or Japan's version of Bloody Mary? But one thing is undeniable. This story was so powerful, it paralyzed entire cities. And ask yourself, how many ghost stories forced real police officers to patrol streets, armed and ready, against something they weren't even sure existed? That's not folklore. Inhale, whisper, pause. That's fear, weaponized. And it leaves us with a haunting question. If the Kuchisake-Onna wasn't real, then who or what terrified a nation into chaos?
Here's the first big problem with the Kuchisake-Onna legend. It doesn't neatly fit into Japanese folklore. Traditional yokai stories, like the faceless Nopparabo or the long-necked Rokurukubi, go back centuries. But the Slit-Mouthed Woman? Her story suddenly exploded in the late 1970s with no clear origin before that. Doesn't that strike you as strange? Why does a supposedly ancient spirit suddenly appear out of nowhere during a decade of unrest? Forgotten ghost? Or invention with a purpose? And that is where things get controversial.
Some academics argue Kuchisake-Onna was a modern ghost, born not from folklore, but from trauma. Japan in the 70s wasn't cherry blossoms and tea ceremonies. It was pressure, rising crime, shifting gender roles, feminism clashing with tradition. So here's the theory. She wasn't just a ghost. She was a mirror, a reflection of fear about women who refused to play their expected role. Think about it. A masked woman, disfigured, lashing out at strangers. What better metaphor for female rage? If that's true, then maybe this was never supernatural at all. Maybe it was psychological warfare. But here's where it turns even darker. What if she wasn't a symbol, but flesh and blood? Some say there really was a woman mutilated by accident or abuse. The story goes, she snapped. Fueled by pain, she stalked the streets. That would explain the bruises, the disappearances. But where are the records, the names, the court cases? Missing completely. So were they erased, suppressed, or buried so deep the truth was never meant to surface? And let's stir the pot even more. Some believe the legend was manufactured on purpose. Imagine government or media spreading the story to distract the public. A ghost so terrifying, citizens worried more about shadows than corruption. Sound far-fetched? Maybe. But history says otherwise. Fear of communists, outsiders, invisible threats. So why not fear of a slit-mouthed ghost? Ask yourself, who benefits when you're terrified of the dark? Here's what we know. Ghost, victim, or fabrication, the Kuchisake-Onna became real the moment people believed. Schools changed. Parents panicked. Police patrolled. That's power. The kind that reshapes cities without lifting a single weapon. And if a story could control a nation back then, what's stopping it from happening again today? Every creepypasta, every viral TikTok horror could be tomorrow's Kuchisake-Onna. So tell me, do we laugh or start looking over our shoulders at night?
If she was only a campfire tale, then explain this sightings spread across multiple prefectures. Children swore she haunted school gates. Adults saw her on empty roads. Some even claimed scratches, bruises, missing persons. But officials downplayed it. Police dismissed it. Hospitals called it accidents. The media covered hysteria, yet avoided the crimes. Sloppy reporting or deliberate censorship?
And eyewitnesses, always the same. Long black hair, trench coat, surgical mask, over and over. Skeptics call it mass hallucination, suggestion. But what if consistency means the opposite? Not a ghost, but a predator. Because think about it, the mask, the ritual question, that's not random, that's performance. And predators love their stage.
But here's the most disturbing part. Why was nobody ever caught? If she was real, there should have been evidence, arrests, a trial. Instead, the legend just fizzled. By the 1980s, hysteria gone, like someone flipped a switch. Suspicious timing, isn't it? Almost like it was designed, a social experiment in fear. So who orchestrated it? And what did they learn from us?
This is where silence becomes dangerous. Unlike the US, Japan doesn't always dissect its legends. Ghosts, yokai, they're woven into culture. But by staying silent, the fear grew unchecked. And here's the controversial thought. Maybe Kuchisake-Onna thrived not because she was real, but because people needed her. A scapegoat, a mirror, a distraction. But tell me, does that make her less dangerous or more?
And yet, she refuses to die. Even now, urban explorers claim masked women haunt abandoned buildings. Kids dare each other to call her name. Adults swear they've seen her shadow on lonely roads. She exists because we keep her alive. In whispers, in fear, in sightings that never fade. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Not whether she's real, but the possibility that one night, on a dark street, you'll hear the words, "Am I beautiful?"
Let's stop pretending this was just a bedtime horror story. Strip away the supernatural paint, and what you find is a society-wide performance. a mask over a mask. Kuchisake-Onna wasn't just the slit-mouthed woman. She was a projection of everything Japan didn't want to confront. Violence against women, rising crime, distrust in authority, and the terrifying power of rumor. And yet, somehow, the legend absorbed all the blame. Convenient, isn't it?
But here's the controversial part. What if she wasn't created by accident? What if someone pushed this legend forward on purpose? Think about it. The 70s were brutal for Japan's police force, accused of incompetence, corruption. Then suddenly, a ghostly villain appears, and the police had a common enemy to fight. Parents turned outrage into fear. People stopped questioning authority. A manufactured myth. Doesn't sound so crazy now, does it?
But here's another angle, the one that still sparks fights today: gender politics. Kuchisake-Onna wasn't faceless. She was a woman, mutilated, masked, silenced, until she fought back. Some feminists argue she was the embodiment of Japan's fear of female anger. But instead of asking, why are women suffering, the legend twisted it into, beware the angry woman at night. So was this ghost a warning or a weapon? Too radical or exactly the point?
And let's talk about masks. Today, after the pandemic, masks feel normal. But in 1970s Japan, they meant secrecy, shame, disease. And that's why the mask was genius. She wasn't hiding in shadows. She could be standing right next to you. That's paranoia baked into daily life. And once paranoia seeps into culture, it never leaves. Sound familiar, America? How many viral stories today make you second-guess the stranger beside you?
Here's the haunting part, the one nobody agrees on. If she was just fiction, why does she keep coming back? If she was just fiction, why does she keep coming back? Sightings in the 2000s, whispers today. She refuses to die. So was she ever just a legend? Or did she leave a scar on society that never healed? Maybe she vanished. Maybe she was silenced. Or maybe she's still out there, waiting, watching, and asking the one question with no safe answer. Am I beautiful? So here we are, at the end of the tale. Or maybe the beginning. Kuchisake-Onna isn't just a ghost story. She's proof of how fragile truth really is. Was she a spirit? A broken woman turned predator? Or a weapon engineered by society? The records? Incomplete. The reports? Contradictory. The official silence? Deafening. That's why the story survives. It thrives in the shadows between fact and fiction. And here's the twist. If she was real, maybe she never disappeared. Back then, a mask was suspicious. Today, it's ordinary. A trench coat, common. A quiet woman on the street corner, forgettable. Maybe she adapted. Maybe she learned. Or maybe she was never just one woman at all. Maybe the legend was always a warning that the most horrifying monsters are the ones who walk right
past you. So I'll leave you with this. Tonight, when you walk home and you catch someone's eyes lingering on you a little too long, what will you say if they ask, "Am I beautiful?" Every answer carries a consequence. Some say the wrong reply seals your fate. Others argue there's no right answer at all. But what do you believe? Was she a ghost, a killer, or a reflection of your deepest fear? Drop your theory in the comments, because whether or not she was ever real, the fear she left behind absolutely is. And maybe, just maybe, she's waiting for your answer.